Well, joining us this morning is George Roach, the CEO of Premier African Minerals. Thank you very much for joining us today, George, following an RNS that has certainly got the attention of the market. How are you doing, first of all?
I'm fine. Thank you very much indeed, Mark, and thank you for taking the time to talk.
Okay, well, let's cover off some of the points in this RNS. I picked up on three main segments to the RNS, really. But first of all, on the offtake and the prepayment amendments, which obviously should have been agreed, I think, yesterday on the 25th. That was, of course, the new terms of the agreement with Canmax. But this hasn't happened yet, has it? Why is that?
Well, the negotiation, as far as we were concerned, was progressing. And we then received a markup from Canmax late last week that, in our view, was not in the spirit of the negotiation to date. And it also sought to change the fundamental tenet of the original prepayment. Now, the original prepayment was exactly that. It was a prepayment for product. And that was not in the form of a loan. It carried no security. It required to be liquidated through payment of product. The amendments that we received required that we effectively turned that prepayment and any further funding that was on offer from Canmax into a convertible loan note. And the board of Premier is not prepared to consider that. To be frank, the original advancement was made under terms and conditions. We would consider looking at security related to any further funding at the moment, but not to convert everything into a convertible loan note.
Indeed. I mean, this is, of course, a big thing that's been concerning shareholders, hasn't it? For a while, we've talked about debt and prepayment. And of course, it's very clear that this is a prepayment from Canmax, not debt. But at this point, they're actually looking to turn that into debt.
Correct.
Okay. So that's a significant change in the terms there, hence why this deal has not been signed.
Well, absolutely. There are terms that the board of Premier do not believe to be in the interests of Premier shareholders, and accordingly could not concede and agree to that. Inter alia, there are other terms and conditions that are imposed that are unacceptable.
Okay. Why do you think this has got to this point? I mean, I recall last time that we spoke that you actually said that Canmax are very on board with discussions. They want the spodumene. They're being very patient and they want to work together. So why do you think they, are not acting in the spirit of perhaps you were before, as you said?
I think that's a question for Canmax. I'd rather not speculate and get involved in that.
Okay.
All I would like to say is that my focus remains exactly the same. I'm very happy with them as a partner. I'd like to work with them. I'm concerned to see that they have the spodumene that they have paid for and that they have it as quickly as we possibly can get it to them. And that's the sole focus that we have. My objective is not to try and change any of that. I just want to get the job done.
Okay. I mean, perhaps is it that they feel that you're in a sort of a tricky situation with regards, of course, we spoke before numerous times about the cash constraints, of course, with wanting to do the AGM to raise the ability to raise the share ceiling there. Do you feel that perhaps they feel that you are in a bit of a tight spot here and they're trying to take advantage somehow?
That suggestion has been made. It is a conclusion that is quite easy to reach, but Premier is definitely not without options. We are not without a very valuable asset, and we are not without significant ways forward from this moment.
Okay, well, let's talk about those options. And you say you're not without options. What is Prem's response to all of this? If you want to continue to get the spodumene produced and ideally to Canmax, how are you going to proceed given this situation this morning?
Well, I think the first thing I need to do is just step back to some of the plant issues. And I think I need to just take cognizance of the fact that as of yesterday, Prem did call force majeure And in our view, and we've taken some very careful legal opinion on this from two sets of attorneys in the UK and in Canada, and the consensus is that a de facto state of force majeure has actually been in existence from sometime in May. And I think the market will recall that I did make certain announcements in regard to what Stark had informed us. Stark they're effectively operating this plant, and they must do so until such time as it performs at its required level. So we feel that is the factual state. It's something that is not without remedy, and time is part of that. And the effects of force majeure inter alia are that they stop the process of time relative to aspects of the agreement. So a requirement to cancel the prepayment and demand repayment of it is stayed for the interim. So there is an inability under force majeure to cancel this agreement and give notice for repayment within 90 days. Force majeure will lift. When force majeure lifts, it's possible then, if one wishes to cancel and call for repayment on 90 days, to give that notice. But that notice would then only be given at a point in time when force majeure is resolved. And in the interim, and this is the intention of force majeure, it's intended to deal with completely unmanaged, unforeseen, unmanageable, uncontrollable events, however one wants to describe them, the kind of thing that we're sitting with at the moment, and to provide time. So within that time window, I have no doubt, and Stark has no doubt, that they will resolve these issues, and we will be back to a very successful and producing environment. So that's the benefit of the force majeure aspect of this. In terms of funding options in the interim, and I think that let me make the point that we will manage our funding expenditure as best and as tightly as we can over this interim period. We have conducted a huge amount of mining. We have a huge amount of stock that is already sitting on ore stockpiles on the ROM pad, partly addressed ore and so on, ready to feed into this plant. We have several hundred tons of concentrate sitting at the plant at the moment. We are not without an ability to continue to operate on a day-to-day basis. That remains. We will need to look at funding alternatives, and those funding alternatives include the possibility of approaching once again certain of our share option holders, which is there and is immediately available to us. And possibly other industry players who have at various times expressed very strong interest in an involvement with us. So we as I say, we are not without options at this point in time.
Okay, thank you for that, George. Just to confirm, the force majeure is called regards the mill. Is that correct? With not being correctly sealed for dust and water ingress.
It's a combination of a number of things that is set out fairly clearly in the force majeure notice that is in the public domain. The issues with the mill are several, but the sitting probably at the heart of this thing is the inability to operate continuously. And that inability to operate continuously relates to, as I've said in our documentation, a seal, a bearing seal that is allowing ingress of dust and water and fails. Now, the mill has 10 shafts in it and has got 20 bearings in it. So, even if a bearing lasts for a week, There are 20 of them. So that the need to replace shafts and continuously stop and so on is ongoing. The unfortunate part of it is that, in our view, this is actually a latent defect. We believe that it was known and was not disclosed. So that's part of it. But it's more than just that. That's a component of it.
Okay, this is effectively a design failure, though, is it, from the original design of the plant that wasn't foreseen?
Well, it clearly wasn't foreseen, nor in the opinion of Prem could it reasonably have been foreseen.
Okay, until you get to the point of actually running it through.
There was no basis under which to foresee the issues associated with the entire milling section of this. That's a component of it. It was something that really, from Prem's perspective, we strongly believe could not have been foreseen.
Okay, and you say you've confirmed this situation by a number of different lawyers here to make sure you're in the right.
Absolutely. We have been very, very careful in terms of getting legal opinion. And to emphasize, it's been my view that a de facto force majeure has been in existence for a little while. Mm-hmm. I was just reluctant to go down this route and would much rather, as remains the case, resolve this situation with our partners, with Canmax, and get on with getting the business done and getting to a point where we can supply them and where we can stop this and run a plant and profitably make money. That's really where my focus needs to be.
Okay. And this force majeure effectively, as you say, sort of stays the situation. It enables the cancellation of the agreement if it comes to that point, and then the repayment will be made within 90 days. But this doesn't concern you as such. You've talked about other players there who are interested, and you're now going to actively engage in discussions with them. So can you tell me a bit more about this?
There are a lot of people who approach us from time to time, and I listen, but I don't necessarily get particularly involved in it. I explain very carefully that we have an association with Canmax, that is where we are, that we're comfortable and happy with it, but that as a public company, if somebody makes an unsolicited offer to us, I would have to look at it. And that's been the approach that I've adopted up to now. I think that may have to become a little bit more aggressive. I hope that isn't the case, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that we can resolve all of this, and I hope that at the end of today even we're sitting down with Canmax and we're saying, guys, let's just sort ourselves out and get on with getting this business working.
Well, that was going to be my sort of next and sort of last question, is when would you expect, I mean, it's difficult to say when you would expect it to be resolved, but what do you expect the next options to be? A discussion this evening with Canmax, and hopefully a progressive one?
Look, we are marking up the document that they sent us. It'll be extensively marked up, and it will be recirculated to them within the next 24 to 48 hours. So we haven't walked away from anything. The force majeure, I think, was necessary under the circumstances. We had understood from our earlier conversations with Canmax, and I think very realistically as well, that they understood the situation we had and were prepared to continue. There was no indication until the last sort of 48 hours, I suppose, that 48-72, whenever we got this modified amendment back, that situation had changed. So as far as I'm concerned, we're proceeding, we're marking up, we're sending documentation back to them. We're in communication. From our perspective, that is where we are. We're not walking away from anything.
Okay. I would guess one of the key points you would have to discuss with them, or they would want to know, is when would you expect to resolve the issues around production and around the mill? Are you able to, have Stark given you any indication of when that might, when the new hydrosizer will go in, and of course that the mill situation be resolved?
Well, that's already out in the public domain. Stark gave us an indication of that some time ago, and the RNS adds to that. The hydrosizer is expected on site for installation during the course of this week. There was the usual unfortunate delays across the Zimbabwean border, but the hydrosizer is there, and everything is done according to stock. All it is a case of positioning this thing and connecting it. So in addition to that, the UV sorters that were originally delayed going back some time are now also so that is what they are intended to do. And they're only likely to improve overall grades going through to the milling section.
Mm-hmm. And this gives you 50% capacity almost immediately then, doesn't it? Okay.
That is what stock are telling us, that we should expect 50% of capacity almost immediately, but that the final mill fixes could take up to 16 weeks.
Sure.
Everything is being done to expedite that. Whatever we can do to expedite it, we will.
Okay, well, if I'm to ask you just a final question, George, I know you're very busy this morning with various phone calls, but of course, looking at the market reaction there, obviously it's not very good. The share price is almost down 50%. The market's clearly spooked. Let me ask you, are you spooked? Are you worried about the situation?
No, I mean, I actually called our corporate secretary a little while ago and asked him if I could buy shares. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that, but that's frankly what I did. I know what we have. I know what plant we have. I know what it is doing. I very clearly understand where this is going. So, I can only say that my confidence in this plant and in the future of this plant remains very strong. And I suppose I understand some of the reaction, but I think that what has been missed is that in calling the force majeure, there are some significant benefits I see to Prem at this stage. It does stay any predictions of some kind of cancellation or this or that or the other thing. Not that I believe that was the intention of the parties. I still believe that Canmax's interest is in obtaining spodumene. So that's where we're all going. That's what we all want to do.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning, George Roach. I hope we can catch up again fairly soon as developments take place in this ongoing situation. But thank you very much for your time this morning. George Roach, the CEO of Premier African Minerals.
Thank you, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.